Welcome to our ongoing presentation of Sukah, which is a return to the garden. During this series, we have covered a lot of new ground. I've explained Sukah from a perspective never heralded previously. We've shared the fact that Sukah is not about pitching tents. It is not about tabernacles. It is not about building huts and hanging in them. It most certainly isn't about 𝐤𝐄𝐄𝐄𝐿 and four species. It doesn't have anything to do with what is projected through Judaism, has nothing to do with what has been turned into a religious observance of this time. Sukah, first and foremost, is, sometimes you just got to take a nap when naps are needed, and this is what we have here with with my Wookiee. I don't blame you, pal. Sometimes that is just really the best way to go, is just to lay down on the job and say, I've given what I have to give today. I don't want to play anymore. Wookiee is actually using my mouse as a pillow. So if as we move forward in the text and I need to read the next line, I may be in trouble here, but we'll do the best we can in the interim. What we've shown is that Sukah, based upon Sukah, which means enclosure, protected, and covered, and Ganan, which is the basis of Gan, Garden of Eden, has exactly the same meaning. It was always obvious to me, very much from the beginning, one of my earliest revelations, I think 24 years ago, that it was apparent that God's story was beginning in the garden and going to return us to the garden. And the reason that we learned so much about the conditions in the garden was so that we would be ready for our return, so we could determine who belongs and who doesn't. What would be the experience that God is taking us back to? What is it that God likes and doesn't like? What happens with people who cop an attitude? What is it all about? Because the 7 Mow'ed Miqra are 6 steps back to Sukah, and Sukah means Gan Eden, and therefore we open the threshold to life, the doorway to life, with Pesach, and cross that threshold, cleansing our souls of religion and politics, on matzah, such that we can be part of God's family, enriched and empowered by Him, on Bikurim. And then there's a tenfold enrichment and empowerment, even a double dose of that, on Shavuot, the promise of 7, as we are brought out of a hideously religious and militant and politicized world, such that the day of the herald becomes the most magnificent day really in all of human history, when Yahweh engages with the 𝐤𝐄𝐄𝐄𝐿 to purge the religiosity of this remaining remnant of Israel around the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. A story that we have been reading throughout the 4th chapter of Yeshayahu, Isaiah, such that on Kippurim, Father and Son, Yahweh and Dove, can return, and that God's people, after being estranged from Yahweh and not seeing Him or hearing from Him in 3,400 years, will have the opportunity to rejoice and celebrate in His presence. This is on Yom Kippurim, 6:22 p.m., as the sun sets in Jerusalem, the 2nd of October, 2033. 5 days later, we enter Gan Eden. This is the celebration of Sukah, beginning on the 7th of October, celebrated by a full lunar eclipse, which is something really, really special in the sky. And that is what we're celebrating now, 8 years prior to the final observance of Chag Sukah in year 6000 Yah. And everything that we need to know about it is explained really in 3 places. It's foretold in the Torah, with God explaining this is the nature of the 7 steps that we walk to Him, and acknowledging that we really meet with God 3 times each year. There's Chag Matzah, Shavuot, and Chag Sukah. And that Chag Matzah is comprised of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, with the seminal day being matzah, when our souls are unyeasted of religious and political fungus. And then the harvest that sets by itself of Shabuah, which is of mature and standing grain, followed by 7 years of the time of Yaakov's troubles, which finally concludes on Teruah, where there is a final ingathering or gleaning of God's people, and then a remnant of Yisrael and Yehudim are brought into Jerusalem to be purged of their guilt by the sacrifice of the red heifer, the oratory of the great Elia, the fire that is ignited by Yahweh, the billowing smoke and ash that soars up towards the heavens, and the dancing waters that flow off of the Temple Mount, all to prepare this adulterous woman that has become Yisrael, the religious woman of Israel, of her guilt, of her uncleanliness. And this then leads to them being able to celebrate Father and Son's return, as it is told to us in Zechariah 12, and the result of the infusion of the Torah guidance inside of us in Yirmiyah 31, and all orchestrated by Elia pursuant to the instructions that have been presented by Yahweh through the prophet Yeshayah. It's all there for our consideration in all of these different places. And of course, with a prophetic text both in Numbers 15, 19, and 5, pursuant to exactly what is transpiring at this time, as well as a significant additional insights and narrative provided in the 6th and 7th chapters of 2nd Samuel. These are all contributors to this marvelous return to the garden. And it has been in these programs where you have been the first to hear this, the single most important story that could ever be shared with you, and you are now the first to benefit from it. Now, one of the things that I shared in a program a couple of days ago was the whole nature of what transpired in Eden, because we were witnessing it before our very eyes. What we've noticed is that, thank you, Wookie. What we noticed is that Yahweh created Adam for companion. Yahweh is shown having an ongoing relationship with Adam, enjoying life together, walking the garden together, working together, communicating together. Yahweh, as a good father, gave Adam instructions. These are things that are prudent for you and things that will not be good for you. And they have what is really a delightful relationship. And it's indicative of what God would have in store for us going back into Eden. This is exactly what he intends for us. But Yahweh realized that man alone is dependent, and God's not looking for a dependent. He is looking for someone who can reciprocate his love, someone who can engage with him in a way that is mutually desirable and mutually beneficial. And when there's only one choice, it's either to go crazy by being alone or choosing God. That really isn't much of a choice, is it? It wasn't fair to Adam. And so God, knowing the consequence of all this, gave Adam an alternative. But let's be clear. Yahweh was not created for Yahweh. He tells us explicitly that Yahweh was not created for him. Yahweh was created for Adam. And Yahweh tells us that Yahweh's purpose, woman's purpose, was to support the man, to be his helper. Unfortunately, something went awry in that relationship. And what we learn that is really germane to our story is at no time prior to the questioning, when God is saying, why did you do these things? Why are you now clothed? Why were you running away from me? Why are you trying to hide yourself from me? Why did you do these things that I asked you not to do? Prior to that, there's no communication of any kind between Yahweh and 𐤄𤅅. No. If they had a relationship, it is unknown to us. And if it is unknown to us, there's a purpose in that. And yet, God still had an ongoing relationship with Adam. And that has been made known to us. So there is something about male, female, the differences between us that God prefers to work with, to enjoy the company of. Amen. And maybe that's why this breakaway cult, when they decided that they wanted to be the reenactment of Numbers 12, where Miriam walked up with a muzzled Aaron and said that after attacking Moshe's wife for ridiculous reasons, demeaning her and trying to demean him through her, they said, we too speak for God. It's exactly what we witnessed in this mother goddess cult in the breakaway. And what we've seen is, Yahweh said, no, you don't. And if I'm going to speak through someone, I'm going to tell you about it. And I'm going to equip them for that job. We're seeing this play out now. And what we saw in the garden, and the way we're told that story, and we're told the story for a specific reason. So we got to deal with what God had to tell us. You can't sweep it under the carpet just because it makes you feel uncomfortable. It's important that we understand what happened and how it is being played out before our eyes right now and what's going to transpire going forward. Because Hasatan, he didn't try to beguile Adam, did he? No. He went against 𐤄𤅅. 𐤄���� was vulnerable. He must have assumed that Adam was not. Adam was vulnerable to 𐤄����. He was lured into this by 𐤄����, not by his own initiative. And Hasatan's mistranslation, misappropriation of Yahweh's testimony was given to 𐤄𝑅. And all Hasatan did is change one word. Just change one word. It's really a subtle change. You really have to be looking for it. His approach was identical to what Paul did in writing these books of the Christian New Testament. It's exactly what Muhammad did in authoring the Quran, is you present something where many of the words are true, but you alter the meaning of enough words to create the opposite meaning that was actually provided in the original instruction. And in the case of 𐤄𝑅, she didn't just fall for it. She ran with it. The text says that she wanted to be a goddess. She wanted not just to speak for God. She wanted to be God. She wanted to be the first member of the mother goddess cult. That's who she is. That's what she said. That's what she did. That's what she wanted. And so she created her own rendition of Yahweh's testimony. Her own. She had obviously heard Adam explain what she should and should not do. And then she twisted it to serve her interest, or what she thought were her interests, because she wanted to be a mother goddess. Who knows? Maybe she was just jealous of the relationship that Yahweh had with Adam. Who knows the motivation? Who was the motivation of the psychotic woman that not just decided to break ranks, but to fixate on demeaning me and to twisting Yahweh's testimony to lure people to their demise? Misery loves company, you know. It's so insightful as to what happened there. And then they had been naked, and they were not the least bit shamed. They were very comfortable in front of God, being exposed and being naked. And the concept of being naked, whether or not, and I think it was quite literally naked, but that's not the message. The message is they were exposed to Yahowah and weren't the least bit uncomfortable with it. As a matter of fact, Chawah and Adam were exposed to each other all the time, and yet they had no discomfort together. There was no point where they said, I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear from you like that. And then Chawah decides that she wants to play religion and become a mother goddess and to twist Yahowah's testimony to support her ambition. And she lures her man in. I mean, this is the only way you can interpret what we're reading. This is exactly what happened, and lures him in, and he goes right along. He puts up no fight. He's not innocent here because he should have known better. But no, he was more interested in cultivating his whatever codependency, I guess, at this point with Chawah than he was with listening to Yahowah. I know some men that have joined the mother goddess cult that are very similar to that. And the moment that they had twisted Yahowah's testimony to assert their agenda to be not just speak for God, but to rise above God, to be the voice of the mother goddess. They knew that even exposed to one another, God wasn't there at the moment. So they felt the need to cover themselves the moment they became religious and wanted to create a mother goddess cult. The moment they chose to do that and were willing to twist the testimony of God, even before they were in God's presence, they were feeling the religious guilt. Cover me! Both of them. They sought not to be open and exposed to one another. You know, that was one of the things I've always talked about in sexuality is, you know, God has a few rules. He says, don't do no incest, no rape, no pedophilia, no bestiality. And don't steal your neighbor's woman. Not a whole lot of rules, but some basic guidelines. But he knows that when we're exposed to one another in a loving relationship, good things happen. You don't feel vulnerable. That's part of the joy of good romance and sensuality, is that when you're completely exposed to your partner and you have no shame, you have total trust in one another, the joy is extraordinary. You ought not be a prude and deprive yourself of that. And I know there's a lot of women out there right now that are trying to demean me because I speak very freely of this wonderful gift that Yahowah has provided to us of sensuality, and how remarkable it is if you're not all caught up in your religious underwear. But that's what they did. They put on religious underwear. They had to be modest now. And so they're now even trying to hide from God because the religious apparel wasn't enough. They're trying to hide from God. They hid from one another with the coverings, and now they were trying to hide from God. And so the first question, where are you going? Why are you hiding? And who told you were naked? What did you even deem to even consider this? That there was something wrong with the way you looked? Why did you consider that there should be restrictions on love and sensuality? What caused you to have this profane and religious view of sexuality? What corrupted you such you would pursue what became Islam, what became Christianity, what became Judaism? What caused you to think like that? And rather than tell the truth, they lied to God and to themselves, just as those who are pursuing the same agenda are doing to themselves and to others. They just lied. And so God held them accountable, said, you have chosen to extricate yourself from my protective enclosure. I'm not only escorting you out, I'm telling you that this is the judgment that is coming upon you. And they were banished, weren't they? We don't really ever hear anything that's good about Adam, and we hear lots of bad things about 𝐄𝐄 thereafter, and their kids, not good either. They did not do well on their own, and in fact, wasn't all that long where those with an asama and using it poorly created such a mess around the area of Eden, which was the area around the Black Sea, that Yahweh just despaired and said, I wish I hadn't even created humankind. This is a very bad idea. These people are obnoxious. I cannot endure their presence. I want to wipe them out. We'll start again. You see, Moshe wasn't the first one to give up on people. Yahweh was. That's because the people were obnoxious. They were violent. They were big on religion. They were Hamas. They were big on abuse and victimizing. They were aggressive. They were horrible. Yahweh gave up on them. That's quite a story when you process what occurred, and then you think of what is occurring now, and this attack on my wife and I and my good friend, probably my oldest friend in the covenant, a very good man, by a group of gaggle of exceedingly vicious women, and those who support them, who will even attack me for defending myself and for defending my wife and for defending my friend. That becomes petty and creepy to defend, to use words, to seek morality. We are witnessing this again, and it's appropriate now because Sukah, God's timing is always great. Sukah is about returning to the garden. Guess who isn't going to be there? The first mother goddess, booted. The follower of the first mother goddess, booted. Something to think about. The children of the mother goddess, they didn't get back in, did they? Pretty straightforward there, Rich. What do you think?
Can we file criminal charges first? Because that's coming.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the online stalking and slander is a crime, and we may very soon file.
That's what they want us to do. That's what
criminal charges. But my view is that Moshe got his face plant moment when Dode gave up on everyone. He had to send somebody that took care of the problem. I'm flat out sick and tired of this. I'm disgusted by them. I'm repulsed. So I'm going to continue to do my job, and I'm going to share Yahweh's insights, because in every case, Yahweh was very clear. He says, I knew this was going to happen. I wrote the story about what happened in Gan Eden for your celebration series on Sukah at the very time they were going to spew this toxin all over themselves and you, so that you would know exactly how I handled it the last time. And I shared Shamuel 6, 2 Shamuel 6 with you, because it answers this question and 1,000 more. He says, I got your back there. There's your response. But I want to tell you, you are absolutely revolting. And I can assure you, you will never, not one of you, will ever see that garden. As for your fate, you will have determined it. But it will not be Shamma'im, and it will not be Gan Eden, and it will not be Sukah. If you're trying to celebrate it now, you might as well stop. All right, so God has a way with words, doesn't he? He can tell a story of what happened in the past, and it will have absolute perfect application for what's happening in the future. As we ended the program yesterday, I shared the following testimony with you. This is a story of what is happening during the celebration of Chag Sukah, Teruah, Kippurim, and Sukah in year 6000 Yah, between the 23rd of September, 2033, and then Sukah beginning on the 7th of October and running 8 days thereafter through the 15th. Then Yahweh will create, initiating something cutting edge, something brand new, something never seen before. Upon every location and dwelling place, site to live. On the mount, this ridge line of Zion, which are the signs that are posted along the way, as well as over her Miqra, her invitations to be called out and meet. I'm just going to have a little speculation here. Yeah, we'll see if I'm right. Well, we're not told explicitly, but by tying Zion and Miqra together, what do you want to bet? How many signs do you think are posted along the way?
7 signs posted along the way.
7. You think is your answer 7? Is that your final answer?
That's my final. I'll take 7 for 400.
What do you think perhaps that first of the 7 signs, what do you think it reads?
The first sign?
The first of the 7 signs. From leading from Dod's home, going up to Yahweh's home. What do you think the first of the 7 signs reads?
Pesach.
Pesach.
Doorway to life.
And again, is that your final answer?
That's my doorway.
God, you're 2 for 2. What do you think the second sign reads?
See, matzah.
And the third?
Bikurim.
And why would those 3 signs be the closest to Dod's home along the way?
Because that whole Chag matzah is Dod.
Fulfilling it, right?
Fulfilling every bit of it.
He's explained it. He fulfilled it.
Yep.
Right. So those are the first 3 signs. And I think as you get almost up to the summit, maybe 7 steps away, I'm just guessing here, 7 steps away from the summit of Mount Moriah, you might find, you think, another sign? The fourth Shabuah. Yeah, that's you're going with Shabuah?
I'm going with Shabuah.
God, another right answer. That is Shabuah. Just 7 steps away from the summit itself. It says Shabuah.
Yep.
Standing grain, mature grain.
And then we step up to Teruah.
A harvest.
Another harvest coming up.
Those last 7 steps, though, man, that's going to be worse than Hillary's step. You know, familiar with Hillary's step, the last tough tread. It used to be the last difficult climb going up Mount Everest was Hillary's step. It now doesn't exist. It's just now a 45-degree ramp. Mountains are road and things happen. But that's the last hard climb. Those last 7 steps, for those who haven't been properly conditioned and prepared, those are tough ones. That's the time of Israel's trouble. And then you get right up to the summit, and you're making your way to the restored house for Yahweh's name. We've got 4 signs. Do you think there'll be 3 more?
Yep.
What do you think the 5th one reads?
Would be Teruah.
Teruah.
That one's really important.
That one's really, that one is.
It's your
that one's really
second
important.
delivery, the last opportunity.
You think that maybe Teruah would be a sign setting by that altar that is on the eastern side of what will be at the moment that this all occurs, a replica of the tent of the restoring witness, all visible to somebody sitting on the ridge, the slopes of the Mount of Olives, which would be synonymous with the Spirit. And of course, this particular harvest, because it is a harvest of olives. And so maybe the Mount of Olives would be where the witnesses will be sitting to watch the not only the olive harvest on Teruah, but also this presentation on behalf of those olives who have been left behind. Would that be a good connect?
Yes.
Maybe olives to olives?
Olives to olives. Makes sense.
Teruah, right there to where the 𝐤𐄅𐄄𝐄𝐿 is going to be slain and roasted, presented.
Preparing for the next step, which is Yahweh and
So
God's return.
Right. So you think that's good. So then as we move towards the entrance, which would face the Mount of Olives, of the tent of the restoring witness, which will be placed, sort of where the Dome of the Rock has been. It'll be gone by that time. Would there be a sixth sign there?
𤤄𤅅𤄄𝐿.
𤤄𝑅𝑒m would be the sixth sign, which would be welcoming.
Welcome home, Yahweh.
Welcome home, Yahweh.
And
this is
Dode.
your home.
Yeah.
Dode, this is your home. Welcome home. You think that's where the sixth sign is? Right in front of the doorway?
Absolutely.
And where do you think the seventh sign is?
The whole planet becomes
Nope.
Eden.
Oh, well, that's true. It's the capital of it. No, the seventh sign. You got one right, but one wrong. But that's pretty darn good. I mean, 6 out of 7. God, if you had 6 out of 7, you'd be paid $40 million as a major leaguer. Yeah, that last one. It's right next to the Ark of the Covenant that the 𝐤𝐄𝐄𝐿, the man from Edom, has repositioned underneath that tent of the restoring witness. And that seventh sign is going to be sitting right next to the Ark of the Covenant and the mercy seat that Dode's going to
Our
anoint
King's throne.
inside of the tent of the restoring witness. And it says, "You're home."
Yep.
You're home.
Dode's throne.
Sukah, this is your throne, your home. Welcome home. Those are the 7 Zion for her Miqra. Now, how's that for making the testimony of the prophet Yahshua come alive in your presence? I can assure you, you've never heard that before. It's never been said before. It's never been written before. It's never been thought before. And how profoundly important is what you've just heard? Of course. It only has value if you choose to embrace it. Because there are alternatives. You can ignore it, or you can be among those who rebuke the source who is sharing these things with you. Your choice. As we move toward and past and through those last 3 Zion on this day, during the celebration, the fulfillment of Chag Sukah, do you think there's going to be any ashen smoke? You expect to see some smoke?
Lots of smoke.
Mm.
Lots of light.
Lots of smoke.
fire.
And the smoke is because underneath the sacrifice of the 𝐤𝐄𝐄𝐿, God has prescribed timbers.
Yep.
In fact, the word that he has used is trees.
Don't uproot the trees.
Amen. Don't uproot those trees. Trees. And what about brilliant, shining radiance and majestic light of a flaming fire? You're expecting any of that around at this time? Has God spoken about any of that?
Just like Elliot performed.
Except
It's going to be even more
except
spectacular.
times a million, maybe how about times 2 trillion, so we could replicate the number of galaxies in the universe.
Yep.
You think it could be 2 trillion times more magnificent than what happened in the dress rehearsal? After all, that was the dress rehearsal. This is the main event.
You're going to need your sunglasses.
Or you're going to need to be prepared for it.
That's part of your preparation.
So we got our smoke, we got our light, we got our signs, we got them placed, we got our Miqra. We got it all, don't we? As a matter of fact, this Miqra was singular, which means it is the Miqra of Sukah.
Sukah.
So this is smoke. We have fire by night during this piercing the darkness. And by the way, there's even going to be darkness during the day because we got a full solar eclipse. God's really clever the way he's orchestrated. Can you imagine? Before the universe was created, he knew he was going to do this. He knew it was going to come down to this. And he arranged for there to be a solar eclipse and a lunar eclipse in the final fulfillment of Sukah. I mean, think of the planning that would be required to make that happen. But see, the solar and the lunar eclipses are all about a relationship between three things. The earth, where we live, the sun and the moon, Dode and his herald. So all of these events, the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse, are about a dance that is taking place between the greater and lesser luminary, the Dode and Yada, from a symbolic point of view, of course. For indeed, and this is, by the way, the reason that I'm so enamored with Yahowah𤄄𤅄𝐿. I think it's why Yahowah𤄄𝅄𝐿 in the 63rd chapter gets it's this out-of-body experience. That's my Zoroa. That's my guy. That's the man who comes from Edom. He had obviously read what Samuel wrote about Obed Edom. That's the guy. That's what's happening here. That's why I just love this, is that with his vocabulary and intellect and relationship with Yahweh, God spoke through him in a way that makes this all come alive and be so very real and tangible. We have been taken forward in time, 8 years now. When this was written 2,700 years, to experience future history. It's as if you were there. You know what Walter Cronkite in that old series? It's if you were there. That's exactly what we're witnessing here. But the voice is Yahweh's, not Walter's. For indeed, upon all of this manifestation of power and glory. Who is the manifestation of power and glory? Yahweh. He's the one igniting the fire. He's the one who brought Eliah back to be the master of ceremony. He's the one who equipped the 𝐤𝐄𝐄𝐿 to serve in this fashion. Well, I'm going to tell you, long before that guy ever gets to the point where he is willing to do this, he will have done, a good 5,000 face plants, because the job is impossible. The people are impossible. They are obnoxious. And the closer they get to you, the worse they are. And so he will have done, his share of face plants, just as did Dode, just as did Moshe. And so it is Yahweh orchestrating all of this. He's the one who is empowering it. He's the one who makes it possible. And it's the way that he is manifesting his power. He's igniting those flames. He's releasing the water. He's doing it all. And he says there's going to be a sheltering canopy. Now, you can look at that chuppah a number of different ways. And when Yahweh uses metaphors like this, he often intends them to be perceived in different ways. The sheltering canopy could be nothing more or nothing less than what Sukah represents. A canopy to be sheltered, protected by God. You're entering his home. That chuppah could be exactly the thing that I referred to in a program, I think yesterday, when I mentioned that the adulterous woman of Numbers 5 is being perfected by the 𝐤𝐄𝐿 of Numbers 19, pursuant to God's instructions as presented in Numbers 15. such that the groom who wants his bride is Dode, who is returning on Kippurim in the middle of Chag Sukah, such that she is perfected. She's cleansed. She is washed. She's presentable. She's marryable. And that chuppah could be the honeymoon suite for Dode and his gorgeous and beautiful bride, Yisrael. It's a lovely sentiment, isn't it? Beautiful. Leah has illustrated that many times because that's how she interprets it. But couldn't the chuppah also be the tent of the restoring witness? The Ohel Mow'ed? Isn't it a sheltered canopy? And won't it be placed over the Ark of the Covenant? Could be all of those things, couldn't it? It could also represent that since the verbal root of Sukah and the verbal root of Gan for shelters and for garden speak of a covering, a canopy, protective enclosure. Could speak of our return to Eden then, couldn't it? And then you'd be 7 for 7. Then you would be that seventh Zion sign could in fact be that I'm restoring the earth and bringing it all back to this sheltered environment of Eden. One of the things I did not share this time that I do think that it's important, particularly with this chuppah representing a return to Eden, which is presented as a sheltered enclosure, is that when the children of Israel had 3 days, and I've mentioned this in previous times, but it's essential that we make these connections, because without understanding, particularly at a time like this, you have almost nothing. Knowledge itself will not lead you to the truth. You're not going to come to understand Yahweh without comprehension. And the only way to comprehend is to make the connections between things. When the children of Israel were pulled out of the hideousness of Mitzrayim, where they were enslaved, where they were being worked to death, where they were suffering apartheid and genocide, in a very religious and political environment, a militaristic environment. And Yahweh freed them of those things with a very strong hand. They still had all of that stigma and stain in them. And so even with 3 days warning, even with God having performed miracles to bring them to that point, God knew that they were going to need to mentally up their game. They were going to have to get their clothes and their bodies and everything scrubbed up so they could be exposed to God. Being exposed to God is a lot. If you don't know who he is and you are not friends, you are not family, God's overwhelming. God's exceedingly warm and approachable and fun and brilliant and sarcastic and enriching and empowering, giving, nurturing, protecting when you're his kid. But you're not his kid. He's the wrathful God. And he's scary at that point. You're either going to revere him or fear him. That's just the bottom line here. And so he knew what was going to happen. And the children of Israel, they were all filled with all sorts of religious misconceptions. And so when God appeared before them, his voice and his light, just as it'll be right here with the beautiful flames that are soaring up to the heavens, that booming sound of the roaring fire. They, 3,400 years ago, felt naked. They felt ashamed. They couldn't stand being exposed to God, to the extent they told God to shut up and go away. They never wanted to see him or hear from him again. This is the consequence of religion. It is what does this. And it's being done again, right in our midst. It's not only the product of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, but of the internal family menace of the mother goddess cult. It's important that you understand these connections. So that was Isaiah 4:5. Then there will be Sukah for camping out, a sheltered dwelling, a covered canopy, serving as a family home, serving as a representation of something manifesting greater dimensions, a tessel. You know what a tessel is? You ever heard the term tessel used when Yahweh was describing the difference between the way he created Adam and his own existence?
No.
Tessel is a really interesting term. For a fellow like me who has drawn the blueprints for many homes and then built them, who can see and vision in his mind what something beautiful might look like, and then render it in the three-dimensional thing that he has seen in his mind on a two-dimensional surface, like a drawing, a blueprint. And then taking that two-dimensional drawing, which can have two dimensions this way foundationally as a footprint, and two dimensions this way as a facade, an elevation, as they call them. I know a lot about tessels. I've spent a lot of time around tessels. I've seen all manner of diagrams, for example, of vessels and airplanes that I have commanded over the years. So I know all about these things. The search of the Hebrew term would tell you that it is essentially a two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional object. Or more accurately, it's rendering something in lesser dimensions so that you can see and perceive what it is and the dimensions that you happen to be in, or those that you can use to convey the intent. It's, if you want to get a very simple version of it, stand in the sun, you recognize yourself as a three-dimensional object, and look at the shadow. It is a two-dimensional version of yourself. That's exactly what God's talking about here. So then there will be Sukah, shelter, serving as a representation of something manifesting greater dimensions. God's saying, we're going to camp out here on the earth and returning you to the Gan, this protected garden. And it is symbolic of what we're going to do throughout all eternity when the camping out together is in a universe of 2 trillion galaxies with hundreds of billions of stars per galaxy. And that's just in 6 dimensions. Imagine what's in Shamaim in the 7th dimension. And that's just, 5% of what is in the dimension of these 2 trillion galaxies, because the other 95% we don't yet have a plan to represent, to even sketch out a design of what it might be. So there will be Sukah, serving as a representation of something in greater dimensions by the light of day out of Choreb, the cutting edge and the dividing line. Choreb. Why do you think he mentioned Choreb? Choreb is just a rocky crag, a mountain in a lifeless place. It's the place where Yahweh introduced himself to Moshe with a crag that was illuminated.
That's also where Israel told Yahweh to shut up and go away.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So he's saying we're going to come back to that same place. That's going to remind you, we're coming back to that same place. We're going to reenact that. This time, I think you're going to do better. But why? Because I sent a couple of guys to tell you to do better.
Just like he said he would.
Just like he said he would.
Yep.
So this time you're going to be a little better prepared. You're not going to worry about what you're wearing. You're going to worry more about your attitude than your wardrobe. Maybe. Well, at least those of you who are going to pass the test to be allowed back into the garden. Some of you might. It is the 𐤄𤅅 that Yahweh gave us, at least the first book of the Torah. Little bits of the second were revealed there. But, some of perhaps even of the third. But after we move out of that, we are moving through the Exodus and away from 𤤄𝅅, as Jews would walk away from the Torah. And it is the cutting edge, it's the dividing line. It's where the Torah was revealed, and it is where the children of Israel told God to shut up and go away. They didn't want to hear or see from him again. And I guess a 3,450-year timeout is going to be sufficient for bad behavior. It says it will be a protected place, an area free from danger, and a safe shelter, a mitzor, concealed place, from the outpouring of violent floodwaters, zerim, from the pouring out of contaminants that are flooding in, and from the rain, matar. So, when I tell you that Sukah is not about being exposed to the elements in your little fabric tent, or your fabric hut, or your fabric booth, and I tell you it's a protected place. It's a place where you can take safe harbor from all that this world has brought to bear. From floods, from storms, from all manner of things. Maybe I got that one right too. That Sukah is not about going outside and living in a hut. It is about recognizing we're returning to the garden where God protected his children, where all manner of harm was kept away. It is a protected place. Sukah is a protected place. It is a safe shelter. It is our destination where we again get to camp out, protected by our Father. It's pretty marvelous, isn't it? Please pay attention, because by contrast, I will either instruct or I will shake every one of the Gentiles associated with or against the house of Israel, similar to how one moves a sieve back and forth, such that nothing which is troublesome will fall through to the earth. Holy mackerel, that is from Amos 9:9. So we have moved to a marvelous place that Yahweh has taken us, and we transition from knowing this great gift, appreciating this great gift that Yeshayah, Isaiah, just gave us. That was our reading from the 4th chapter. But I wanted, before we return to the Torah and its presentation of the Miqra of Sukah, which we've already begun, that there are a couple of other prophetic portraits that are pursuant to this day. And as I've just shared, the first of them is found in Amos 9 through 12. And in it, Yahweh speaks of using a filter mechanism to determine which souls are allowed to remain and which are not, which are not going to make that final cut, which are tossed away. Going to reestablish the Sukah of Dod, which the religious have ransacked and they have misappropriated. And you're not coming back in to ransack it again. So please pay attention. Because by contrast, I'm either going to instruct or I'm going to shake. 𐤄𐤅𐤄𤉅. 𐤄𤉅 is to offer instruction. It's to direct. Everyone of the Gentiles associated with or against the house of Israel. You know that Mama Goddess cult that's out there? They called Shabuah their harvest because they were what? Gentiles not interested at all in God's people, Israel. They said, we're coveting this. This is ours, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so God's going to shake them up. And it's not just by shaking them up. God's also seeing to it that the Gentiles are instructed. When you read all of the prophetic statements pertaining to the final witness that Yahweh has chosen, including the 𤤄𤅅𤄄𝐄𝐄 presentation given on Teruah, on the Temple Mount by Solomon, where this individual is called both the hand or influence of God at our time and a Zeroah by God. He is depicted communicating to the Goyim, instructing them, and simultaneously the house of Israel. Reads exactly like this. So you may want to pay attention. As one moves the sieve back and forth. Remember how many times I've said that the job that Yahweh has assigned the choder, he very often says that he's not just a shepherd leading God's people, protecting them with the staff, but he is also the rod of divine judgment. His role is as much to determine who is allowed in, as well as who is allowed, not allowed in, who is blockaded. Kabara. These person waves and shakes the mesh screen and the sifter, this filtering device. Everything God has to say about covenant participation, the observance of the Mow'ed Miqra, and the message that he will convey through his chosen implement, all gets down to this. He's not just the one who is removing the obstacles from the elevated path to God through Dod's sacrifice, but he is the one who is also holding that sieve, determine who is allowed through and who is not. And in this case, nothing that is troublesome will fall to the earth. It will all be contained within that sieve. And the sieve, is kind of like a net in a way, isn't it? It's like confining the riffraff, isn't it? You put your hand over that sieve, and you've trapped the negative influence, haven't you?
Yep.
I wonder where they're going to go.
Lots of pressure.
But it isn't the earth, is it? So they're not going to simply die because they're not coming to the earth. No. They are not going to. Dust to dust is not going to be their fate.
They are going to get their wish.
They're going to have their own little place of separation. They're not going to have to spend any time around that rotten Zeroah who they deny, that 𤤄𤅅𤄄𝐄𝐄 who they deny, this final witness who they they're going to be kept from having to endure that. Isn't that nice?
But they won't be alone.
They won't be alone. And they'll have one another. I don't know what they'll be wearing, but I'm sure it'll be modest. Now, it's imperative that God establish the means to ascertain who lives, who dies, and who is trapped and incarcerated. And particularly at this time, you can't have Eden plagued by religion and politics or conspiracy. We're not going to let T'Challa back in to twist Yahweh's testimony to play Mother Goddess. Been there, done that. God didn't like it. Didn't work out. We're not going back. By the 𤤄𐤅, the cutting edge and the dividing line, every one of my people who have missed the way will die, including those who protest. The implications of wrongdoing associated with our companions will not be associated with us. No, no, no. Nor will we have to confront it such that it comes around to us and extracts a price from us. How dare you say that just because we are slandering you, we are condemning you, we're calling God's witness a lie, how dare you say that that behavior will have earned us a trip to Sheol? How dare you say it won't affect us? No, don't you worry. No, no, no. Smoke and mirrors. Can I have another large tent to wear that covers up my hideousness, please? Maybe I'll create a site that further demeans the voice of God so that no one knows that I'm really the one who is naked and screaming. And no, 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 it's not us. It's don't you worry. I've got you all covered. We can find another way to demean him. Sure, it'll be irrational, but you won't care. You're played for fools. Amos 9:10. It seems like Yahweh was saying, I'm not buying that as an excuse.
Nope. So much for the people that say, God does. I don't care what I call God because he knows my heart.
So
really? Yeah, he does know your heart.
Yeah. Well,
he's not happy with it.
Here he's talking with the people who are vocal. Here, these are people who claim that they're Torah observant. These are by 𤤄𤅅. These aren't the people who are out there saying, no, our faith is going to solve. They're not even reading this. They're not processing this. No, these are the insiders. These are the people who are standing beside 𤤄𝅅, who were able to listen to what God had to say, who were presented with God had to say, and didn't process it, chose to rebel against it, chose to be just like the Israelis of the Exodus. Every one of my people who have missed the way will die. Yeah, you're not going to get an excuse to say, oh, but I didn't like him very much. But no, he had an ego. But no, he was too confident. He was too bold. He applied all of those millions of things you had to say about Dode and you yourself and him and the people too literally. We didn't like that. He didn't give any comfort for us to play Mother Goddess. The way it was presented to you, you missed it. You're going to die. Now, that, by the way, those who are wrong, it could have been written, those who mislead, but the ones who mislead, not necessarily going to die. It's not, you're going to wish you could. Those who protest, oh, no, it's not going to happen to us. We haven't been associated with any wrongdoing. No, it's those other guys that are wrong. Not us. No, we're not hypocrites. Won't be associated with us. We're never going to have to confront it. How dare you say that about us? Doesn't apply to us. Just because it's perfectly reflective of who you are and what you have done. No, it doesn't apply to us. We're not going to have that price extracted from us. No, we can lie all we want to. We can tell ourselves that we speak for Mama God, and it's all going to be just fine. She'll have our back. Or not. During that day, I will erect and establish the Sukah, this sheltered dwelling of Dode, which has fallen. I will repair and restore its breaches, and then I will raise up whatever is in despair, and then I will rebuild it so it is like long ago, and it will endure forevermore. Are you familiar with a moment that Dode established a Sukah? When he put a tent on the Temple Mount. Are you familiar with any story that's pursuant to Dowd trying to bring the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem, and then a fella doing a really stupid thing when it was going over the wrong threshing floor? He tried to control it, and Yahweh said, nope, that bull is pulling the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem. And he is resolving the guilt of my people, and you just impeded that message that I was giving, and the consequence of that is death. You breached, is the term that he used, my intent. And Dowd got all pissy about it, didn't he?
He didn't understand the priority.
And he just flat out was wrong. And Dowd should have understood it, because the Torah existed, and it's all explained in Numbers 5, Numbers 15, and Numbers 19. All explained. Dowd's really bright. He's very good at making the connections. He should have understood exactly who that bull was that was pulling the Ark of the Covenant toward Jerusalem, and why it could not have that picture interfered with. But he didn't. He was wrong. And so he had a little conniption fit, and he just finally said, you know, I'm mad at you, God. I think you overreacted. And oh, by the way, I'm just giving up. I'm not going to pay. I'm not going to do anything. I have no idea how to bring this Ark of the Covenant, not into Jerusalem at this point. To me, he said. I don't know how to bring the Ark to me. Why? Because it has to be brought to him, because he's the one that has to anoint it at the end. So somebody has to represent the Ark of the Covenant so that Dowd can anoint it on 𤤄𤅄𤄉 and provide the blood of a bull at the same time. Oh, was it a bull that was pulling the Ark?
Yep.
It was, wasn't it? Wonder if there's a connection there.
The connection to there is a connection to a guy named Obed also.
Obed-Edom. So how did God resolve the problem? Obed-Edom to the rescue. What does Obed-Edom mean? The one who serves from Edom. And he came from the wine vat. Have you ever read a story about a man that comes from Edom that is in the wine vat along with wine press along with Yahowah𤄄𐤄𝐿?
Oh, yeah. The rabbis hate that story, though.
63rd chapter of Yahowah𤄄𐄄𝐿, isn't it?
Yep.
And he saves many, doesn't he?
Yep.
And he is Zechariah or Yahowah𤄄𝐿, Isaiah's Zeroah, is he not?
Yep.
Yeah. I wonder if there's a connection between the man from Edom who comes from the wine vat, is in that wine vat, and this Obed-Edom, who's the one serving from Edom, who is from the wine vat.
Just part of Yahweh's beautiful word pictures. They all tell a story.
And so what does this guy do? He not only takes care of the Ark of the Covenant and protects it, while Dowd gets a lesson on, hey, pal, you bungled this one. Let me explain it to you so that you get your head right, and then we'll proceed from this point. And he did. And Yahweh extolled this man from Edom. And then who was responsible for repositioning the Ark of the Covenant where it belonged?
The Obed-Edom, from Edom.
Did Dowd ever touch it?
Nope.
Did Dowd direct it? Did Dowd have anything to do with it other than he celebrated it?
He celebrated it.
And when I made the conclusion based upon reading Zechariah 3 and 4, that the one who will wear the breastplate of the high priest to anoint the 𤤄𝑅, the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant on Yom Kippurim, which is required from the Torah to resolve all of this.
Yep.
Did I not say that it is Dowd that's going to wear the breastplate of the high priest?
Yep.
First person ever bring that up, right?
Yep.
What did Dowd put on when Obed-Edom was taking the Ark into Jerusalem?
He put on his headpiece and he put on his chest plate. And
he did, didn't he?
Yeah.
And what was his role? To dance.
To dance.
To laugh.
To laugh and celebrate.
To celebrate that the fact that Yahweh had a guy.
Yep.
He had a guy. And that guy was taking care of this. And then what Dowd did, he said, I'm going to erect a 𤤄𝐿. I'm going to put a tent right there on the middle of the Temple Mount, and we're going to put the Ark of the Covenant in it. Wouldn't that be the Ark or the Sukah and the 𤤄𝐿 of Dowd?
Yes.
Isn't that his only one? Do we ever told that Dowd created a new tent of the restoring witness?
No.
No, but he established that one, didn't he?
Yes. That's,
So wouldn't that be the only one that we're talking about here? And why we're going right back to that exact same situation?
that's how all these metaphors and stories work. They all tie together.
My goodness. And we're going to restore the breach. What breach? The breach of that whole metaphor of the bull repositioning the Ark of the Covenant so that it would be in its proper place so that Dowd could anoint it at the proper time. And those who God killed were in breach of that story. God's going to, whatever is in disrepair, he's going to rebuild it. So long ago, it will endure forevermore. On behalf of whom? Dowd.
Absolutely.
So, do any of the religious, Christians, Muslims, or Jews, acknowledge Dowd as the Savior?
No.
As the one fulfilled 𝐤𐄅𐤄𐤄𝐄𝐄𝐄?
No. Not even
as the Messiah?
Nope.
As the returning King?
Nope.
As the Son of God?
Nope.
And isn't the Mother Goddess cult having a conniption fit with the idea that Dowd fulfilled Passover because they're buying into the religious Judaism argument, because they're becoming religious as cultists, that Dowd could not have fulfilled Passover because there's no human sacrifice? Isn't that their argument?
Yep. There's no Mashiach.
And wouldn't, since all animals have souls and bashar bodies, and since it was the bashar body that served as the Passover lamb, and Dowd's soul, with his nasama, enveloped in the ruach of Yahweh, survived and carried our guilt into Sheol, and then fulfilled Bikurim and returned to Yahweh, was Dowd the human sacrificed, or just the body?
No, just the body.
And do you think that body became a on the pole rather than through the wrists and and his ankles where he was pierced and nailed? Do you think when the Romans were pounding those nails in, it magically transformed into lammy?
No, that would be creepy.
So do you think that when Hasatan's minions kill and bludgeon the Adamas Parah for this final sacrifice of the bull, do you think that the man who is representing that is all of a sudden going to, as they take their wax, he's going to turn into a red cow?
Oh, hell no. It's just so ridiculous.
And do you think that the body that I'll be given away at that moment, that I have any regret in losing it?
Body's irrelevant.
In fact, aren't I going to be celebrating the fact that I was able to offer something that I want to get rid of at that point?
Yep.
And that it's serving a purpose? Don't you think it's a great celebration? And the me that is me is going to be beside Dowd and celebrating this and say, hey, look what we're doing now, man.
Yeah.
We're literally living in the midst of the most important day that Yahweh has ever spoken of.
People truly don't understand dimensionality and what's going to happen.
Yeah. It's marvelous. And what are we doing this for? For Dowd. And if you don't understand and you can't accept what Dowd did, then you're in real trouble. And of course, this stupid insider cult that is pursuing this Dowd can't be the Passover lamb because no human sacrifice. You know the reason they're saying it? It isn't just to rob Dowd of his achievement, even though Dowd explained that he was going to do it in first person in Mizmor 22 and 88, and it speaks of it again in Yeshayah 53. And most of the Psalms get around and speak of it one way or another. Even though it is obvious that is Yahweh's story and that Dowd volunteered to do this, they are denying it, actually not because they have an issue with Dowd. You know why they're denying it? They have an issue with me. You know why they have an issue with me? Is because it's obvious that I am who God says I am. And they must deny that. So they must deny that there will be a sacrifice of the Adamah Parah.
Small minds are
which denying
confused.
the Torah now, they must deny that and deny the associations that are so obvious on all of this. They must deny them because even though they were the first to acknowledge them, and even in their parting letters, they said, because you don't speak for mommy God, and many people are going to be misled and die. You won't be one of them, because you are the Adam of Parah and all. Even though that's what they said and their departing letters, they now must deny that, because if in fact God is accurate in his depiction, and there is nobody else in human history that has fulfilled this role, and the likelihood that somebody is going to come up miraculously and this next year to fulfill this role and without any prior preparation is zero, they must deny those things now, because if what they accepted as true is true, then they're screwed.
They painted themselves into a corner.
They did. And they have painted, and if it was just themselves, I'd say, so what? But they are continuing to lure others into that sieve from which there is no escape. No return to earth. No entry into Sukah. It's all about Dod. You see, even that fella that is serving as the bull, even that guy, he is nothing more than the lesser luminary, reflecting the sun's light. So it was during this very discussion in 2 Samuel 7, which is preceded by what comes before 2 Samuel 7. Not a trick question. 2 Samuel 6. Where is the story of the bringing of the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem, and the story of the role that Obed-Edom plays and all of this, and then the great line of Dod where he completely rebukes the modesty cult that is now out there trying to besmirch me, whose full-time job now it is to besmirch me. What would that be if the greatest prophecy ever told is in 2 Samuel 7? What precedes it?
2 Samuel 6.
Where is all that stuff I just shared?
2 Samuel 6. He didn't hide it. He didn't stick it in another book chapters away for you to decipher.
Would that not be the story of father and son, and how that story has a marvelous assist by the man from Edom?
Yep.
I thought so. So to deny it, boy, you would really have to call God a liar. You'd have to say that every story that God told, it has no value whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because what does 2 Samuel 7 talk about? Isn't it talking about Yahweh building a home for Dod and placing his throne in it, and his throne being eternal, and that Dod is in fact his beloved son, and that he is his father, and that his reign will be forevermore?
That's what it says.
Aren't those two stories related?
Just a little bit.
And doesn't Amos 9:11 address it?
Just kind of clarifies it again. There's your second witness.
Why is this so difficult for people? As a result, thank you, Wookie, for getting up, paying attention. This is important. So listen, okay? You listen. As a result, all of those who are called by my name will inherit that which is associated with whatever remains of
Edom. Of Edom. Oops.
Of Edom. Why do you think he spoke of Edom? Because maybe the man from Edom, maybe because Obed-Edom played a major role in the restoration of the Ark of the Covenant and its return to this celebration of Sukah.
There's your word picture right there. Connect the dots, people.
Oh my goodness. Will inherit whatever is associated and remains of Edom. Why Edom? Because of what the man from Edom represents. He is the one who lays down his life to restore the lives of this remnant of Israel so that they can re-enter the garden on Sukah. In addition to the Gentile nations, of course, we've learned that there are, as a whole chariot, dappled ones, bringing Gentiles in to serve as workers, which is not a pejorative. That is a very good thing. Yahweh loves to work. They are the workers of the millennial Shabbat of Sukah. And so, addition to Gentiles, prophetically declares Yahweh, who will make this happen? Amos 9:12. Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate Yahweh making my case. Good day.